Hello and welcome to another episode of Mike and Dave's Hi-Fi Riff. I'm Mike Evans.
And I'm David Price.
And David, on this week's episode, what are we going to talk about?
The Prodigy, Mike.
We're going to talk about the Prodigy. Is that Keith Flint?
Yes. No, hang on, that's a different one, isn't it?
Oh, is it?
So,
okay.
No, I'm not talking about the popular beat house combo from the early 90s with Everybody in the Place and Charlie. That's a different Prodigy.
Okay.
We're talking about the Prodigy by PMC.
Look at these.
Yeah.
Look at these. These are really cool.
They are.
They're really cool, actually.
We like these a lot, actually, don't we?
I have to say, these are quite something. These aren't the first pair of PMC speakers I've heard.
No.
Because I have listened to these are the Prodigy ones,
Yep.
we should say, shouldn't we?
Yep.
But I have listened to the Prodigy 5s
Yep.
at your house, which were also really nice.
Yes.
And we should do a riff on those at some point.
We shall, but
without a doubt.
Yep.
But these are real cool bits of kit, I think.
they're very nice.
Really quite funky. Yeah. And they have something which is really rather unusual for a speaker of this size, don't they? Because they are transmission line.
They are.
And I think they're probably just about the diddiest transmission line speakers I've seen in an awfully long time.
Yep.
I tend to think of transmission line as being floor standing.
Yeah.
Almost without exception. And in fact, when you look at things like the Kerr acoustics, which we've reviewed before, but in fact, actually, Jez Kerr makes a pair of stand mounts now.
Yep.
But they're 3 times the size of this.
Yes, and a lot more expensive as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I can't help but think it's a really good idea, isn't it? Because if you've got a box this size, and it's only a tiny little thing. Do you know these don't fit on my can stands because they're too small?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I actually had to take the spikes out of my can stands because they sort of sat between them, and I was a bit worried it might damage them. So,
Wow.
so they're literally smaller than those. So, sort of width-wise, lengthwise
Yes.
that way. But I can't help but think it's a great shout because you get what's the Holy Grail? The Holy Grail is trying to get big sound out of a small box, isn't it? Absolutely. Yeah. And I remember back in the day us talking about, wouldn't it be great if Lynn ever did a concept with the cans and made them isobaric?
Yeah.
So you could try and do exactly that. You could get a big box, but actually maybe transmission line was the answer, because they do exactly that, don't they? You get a really decent amount of grunt out of these tiny little boxes.
Yes.
And they don't have to be tucked right back against the wall either, do they, to get it?
Correct. So, sorry for the greasy fingerprints.
Do you know they mark really easily?
So, yeah.
They really mark easily. I'm
PMC
forever cleaning them.
Yeah.
So
PMC have obviously designed it, so if anyone ever steals them, the police will be able to track down
immediately
the criminal in seconds. So I mean, it's I didn't know my skin produced this much natural oil until now.
Until you had some PMC speakers.
So I should go and work for a soap company or something. So it looks awful. But in fairness, if you do buy a pair of these, you won't be manhandling them around like this and stuff.
No.
And we've been moving them around a lot.
We have, yeah.
We'll try and.
They do tend to sort of sit there and just play normally, don't you? You don't really have to touch them, do they? So, that's not a deal breaker for me.
No, so it's not a deal breaker for me either.
You going to stroke any parts of it today?
Well, I'll stroke the tweeter if you fiddle around with the binding posts, Mike.
Can I? What about the port?
Just don't go there, okay?
No, okay,
This is a family show.
Yes, absolutely.
So, yes, anyway, before I was so rudely interrupted, I was trying to say that I was trying to develop upon your theme, Mike, and actually, I think you're quite right. Transmission line is a very good idea in practice. Because once again, you've got the sealed box idea, which I think is the best idea in practice. Sorry, the best idea in theory.
Yeah.
But in practice, it's often the worst idea because it presents all kinds of issues.
Yes.
So you've got, if you've got a sealed box, it needs a real chunky amp to really get the best of it. They can be, present very awkward loads to amplifiers, and you lose compared to a ported box. Either efficiency or you lose bass extension, and every designer of a loudspeaker basically gets to choose whether you lose bass or bass extension or efficiency.
Yes.
with a seal box infinite baffle.
And also they're real Marmite products then, aren't they? Because the Lin can's a classic example, isn't it? I mean, you really love it or hate it.
Yes.
There's sort of no halfway house there at all, is there?
Absolutely.
And you know, and because of the flaws.
Yeah.
So.
And then with a reflex port, then you've got the sort of other problem in reverse, in the sense that you've got better efficiency and or better bass extension, but then you're dealing with the cabinet is no longer a kind of finite thing. It's now becomes the room becomes, in a sense, part of the cabinet, which is very unpredictable, and you've got issues with placement. So if you've got a rear port, putting them against the rear wall, is not a good thing to do.
No.
And kind of in the middle, you've got the transmission line, which is, in a very crude way, it's a kind of super controlled port, isn't it? Really?
Yes.
It's a hole, it's a vent to atmosphere from the speaker box, but it kind of goes round a very kind of elaborate sort of network of...
A labyrinth.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yes.
That's very clever.
Excellent, thank you.
So, yes.
Jess Kerr told me that.
Yeah, well, there you go. So, a labyrinth, viewers, of tubes, and in this speaker, it's 1.9 meters of internal transmission line.
Seriously,
that's what it says on the press release. I can't vouch for that.
We can't take it apart and have a look.
I didn't measure it personally to check.
No.
But I mean, basically, there's a lot of transmission line going in there, so what the transmission line does is basically kind of control the flow of air very carefully, and it sort of gives you a much more, in theory, predictable relationship with the room. I think it's fair to say.
Yes.
And it does present some extra load, so it can be. It can mean that the speakers are less easy to drive than ported speakers, but
it doesn't seem to be the case with these.
No, well,
these don't seem difficult to drive.
I mean, I think
particularly,
absolutely. I think, as ever with speakers, it ain't what you do; it's the way that you do it. And I think why there are not many companies that do transmission lines is they don't know how to do it.
No, well,
or they don't know how to do it well.
Sure.
And or it's more expensive actually to manufacture than just a basic hole in the cabinet.
Sure. And in terms of price, these are
£1,250.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's PMC's cheapest speaker. It's their entry level transmission line. It's obviously two-way. It's we were at the original launch conference, weren't we, at the Munich show?
We were.
Remember that?
We were indeed, yes. And in fact, I listened to them again at the Bristol show this year, which is where you picked up your cold. Yes. And I thought they were fantastic.
Yes.
I thought they were really, really cool. I loved them.
Yeah.
I thought they were they did the thing which is hard, which is sound good in a hotel bedroom in a hi-fi show.
Yes.
So which is no mean feat.
In the Marriott Hotel in Bristol.
Marriott Hotel in Bristol.
The world's worst acoustics.
It certainly is. Yeah, and they did a great job.
And the world's worst air.
The world's worst air is which you can certainly vouch for. Yes. Probably coming out of these speakers, actually. They're moving that much of it.
It was basically, exactly, spreading the Petri dish all around through those long transmission lines.
Sure. But Munich show. We did listen to the Munich show. They were terrific, and but actually PMC have got a long history, haven't they?
Yep.
They've been going for donkey's years, since probably the early 90s, I would imagine.
Over 30 years.
Yeah. And they've actually, I mean, because obviously my sort of, I still very much attach them to studio equipment.
Yeah.
Professional monitor company. So lots and lots of actually really cool producers have used these, haven't they? These were used, did you know this? I've got a great fact for you. These were used in all the Peel Sessions albums.
I didn't know that.
No, yeah, you are. You see, PMC speakers were in all the Peel Sessions albums. And in fact, quite a few sort of cool people have got have got used these at home. Robbie Williams does.
And what about the cool people, Mike?
There's been lots and lots of funky people. Trevor Horn
Uh-huh.
used these when he re-recorded Seal's album.
Well, there we go. We have to do that for Trevor Horn.
We do.
We're not worthy.
We do. No, absolutely. Anything with Trevor Horn.
Yeah.
Well, actually, Trevor Horn's got a new album out.
Yep.
Well, it may not be that new, but it's new to me.
Yes, Mike, but so are the Beatles.
Well, that's true. I'm going to be so careful here. But it's got some really weird remakes of some of his classic songs from Grace. I mean, for example, it's got "Owner of a Lonely Heart," which he produced for Yes, with Rick Astley singing it.
Yeah,
but I quite like it. Like it, and I've listened to these a lot with that album.
I never had you down as a Rick Astley fan.
I love a bit of Rick Astley. I do like. Tell you what, all joking aside, "Cry for Help" is one of the greatest songs of all time by any artist. So there we go.
Never heard of it.
You see, you're just a muso heathen.
I'm in shock. So,
there you go.
Back in the day, you're like you read Sounds, and you were kind of Mr. Heavy Metal and Rush and everything.
Yeah.
I now discover your secret life, Mike.
My secret
going to Rick Astley concerts with 11-year-old girls.
Don't knock a bit of Rick. If actually you say that, if my daughter would go with me, then I would go with her. But she thinks he's a bit of a fossil. But I listen to some of my daughter's music as well.
Yeah.
Please don't ask me what jungle something and I don't know and stuff.
Something or other else.
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember. I don't know. But it sounded really good. In fact, I tell you what, it actually lends itself quite well to that sort of generic pop sound.
It is very good for kind of modern produced ultra compressed pop, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah. Yeah. But going back to this Trevor Horn album, it sounded great. Really great with it, because it's nicely produced, obviously.
Yeah.
And he put a lot of time and effort into it.
Yeah.
And I just thought these really shone with that. It just sounded fabulous.
I heard that he had the album mastered for owners of very old exposure amplifiers.
Did he?
Who were trying out entry-level PMC, stand mounts.
We haven't. I think I'm right in saying that neither of us have met Trevor Horn, have we?
Sadly not.
No. We'd like to. Trevor, if you watch our programme, would you perhaps give us a call sometime and we can buy you a beer, maybe? Or you can buy us one. You've got far more money than we have. Trevor will definitely be watching.
I think you wasted that last 15 seconds.
If Trevor won't buy us one, will someone else, please?
In the words of Douglas Adams, this did not happen.
We hang around enough bars and no one ever buys us drinks, so the chance of Trevor Horn doing it is probably slim to none.
Yes.
Anyway, back to these beautiful.
As my art teacher used to say, if I ever asked him if I could get off a lesson, what's the chances of getting off a lesson? You say start at 0 and work downwards.
Excellent.
So, yes.
Excellent.
So basically, we'll never see Clever Trevor and we'll never have a drink with him. So let's move on from that trauma.
Yes, okay.
And yes.
Okay.
So get back to these.
But it seems to play all sorts of music really well.
Yeah.
It has, they have a signature.
Yes.
There is absolutely no denying that. They have a very specific signature. I think you could probably spot them a mile off.
Yep.
Now, they are... I want to be really careful with this because I don't want to put anybody off. But they're not bright in any way, shape or form. They're probably not the most detailed, analytical speakers I've ever heard in my life. And you could even argue they sound a little bit like you with a little bit of a head cold.
Yes.
Okay, now that's
Shovid.
not... See, that's with your Shovid.
Yeah.
Now, that's not a bad thing to say, you see, because I actually think it sounds quite cool with your head cold. And I think these sound really cool as well.
Yeah.
So, but they're not the last word in detail, are they?
Yes.
Is that fair to say?
I think it is. Well, I'd like to walk back on the... Let's not compare them to me with a head cold.
No, it's a really bad analogy.
That's actually quite misleading.
It is.
So, I think what Mike's trying to say is, so actually, tonally, the balance is, I'd say, pretty even, but there is a touch of nasality, I think, in absolute terms, that come through. So when you've gone, let's say, from my NS1000s to these, then there's a certain kind of veiled and slightly nasal sound to the upper mid range and treble, but that's not to say that any other speaker at or anywhere near the price isn't the same, you know?
No, sure.
So,
but I mean, if you listen to, say, something like the LS35As, which we listened to recently, they are positively bright in comparison to these. You know, they're very much sort of chalk and cheese. I really like these. Don't get me wrong. I think these are absolutely cracking.
They are.
I really, really love them. And we've listened to a couple of speakers recently around about this price point.
Yeah.
And I think these are right up there. I think they're, these are got to be on your shortlist without a doubt.
Well, I think the interesting thing about these is that they're not especially shouty or screamy at all, but they are really fast. Aren't they are. So some speakers kind of sound dramatic by basically just being tonally forward, hard in your face.
Yeah.
These don't do that. They sound dramatic by being reasonably tonally balanced, but with in terms of the time domain, the kind of transience, the speed.
Yes.
They're super fast, aren't they?
They are.
Yeah.
And they do something else which very few small speakers do.
Yeah.
They sound really good at low volumes.
Yes.
They sound amazingly good at low volumes. And actually, that's a real art. That's such a tricky thing to do. And I think that's just because they inherently move a lot of air. When I think of some of the infinite baffle speakers we've listened to, you've really got to rack them up. Even my Linsaras, you know, they sound pretty poor at low volumes. You've got to be really cranking up the volume before they come to life. Even with 2 bass units in them with the isobaric principle. But these are very different.
I think that's a really good point, actually.
Yes.
So I haven't really listened to them at low volumes very much.
No, you're just they kind of absolutely. They lend themselves to.
They invite
bump
you
up the jam.
They invite you exactly to hit the old loud pedal. On the exposure. What's that you got there?
I've got 6, 7, 8 over there.
Is that an 8 preamp?
No, it's the 8 is the power amp. The 7 is the preamp.
Yeah.
And the 6 is the power supply.
That's the one I was looking for, the Exposure 7 preamp.
Yes.
And so that we really whacked up the volume. I've heard these in my system as well as in Mike's sort of 80s classic exposure system. And they just sound great, whatever they're being driven by, I think. They're much easier to drive than you might expect. The efficiency quoted sensitivity is 87 dB for 1 watt at 1 meter, which is pretty good for a small speaker. Not bad at all.
They feel more efficient than that somehow.
They almost do. And at 6 ohms nominal impedance again, that's pretty fine.
Yours is upside down, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, God, thank you very much.
Well, if I don't say it, someone else will.
Yeah. No, you're quite right. So, I was looking at my Diet Coke can, hoping it wouldn't fall over on your new sofa, Mike.
Me too.
I'm glad I got my explanation in, because I then don't have to write something in the comments about.
No, sure.
So,
I would, going back to systems, it would have been interesting, and I'm so sorry I can't remember, but I would have been interested to know what the PMC's guys were using with this at the Bristol show, but honestly, for the life of me, can't remember. I just remember them sounding really sweet and really nice. So forgive me for that. Perhaps somebody can remind us in the comments. I don't know.
There's one thing, if I may, please. I want to sort of add. So these, they're quite light. They're 4.5 kilograms.
Really light.
They've got basically, I think, pretty high quality. There we go. Let's get some of the viewers excited now.
Stop stroking the tweeter.
That's a mesh grill, by the way. Haven't broken it yet. So basically these are PMC drivers. They're established PMC drivers. They're very good quality, as you'd expect. I think they appear in more expensive PMC speakers. Obviously, these are the cheapest PMC domestic stand mounters. So you've got pretty good drivers in there, but you've got a pretty light cabinet, and it's still reasonably dead if you bang it. But I would say that if it's drivers versus cabinets, I would say that the more flawed of the two is the cabinet.
Okay.
And don't take this as a word of criticism. So these are 1,250 quid speakers, and I'd never say they have cheap cabinets, but they're not the kind of things that you get in some speakers, many of which are made in China, with kind of 25 kilograms of cabinet, massive things with huge walls, incredible damping, etc. these are made in the UK, and that's a really interesting point.
Sure,
I think.
sure.
So PMC really wanted to make a product that was made in the UK, and I'm not going to get into sort of politics of where things are made too much, but I think that it's very good that they tried, and that they've done this, and it's done very well, and it's done in a very convincing way, and there's no sense that you're kind of sacrificing anything, as it were, for having a speaker cabinet made in the UK. The only thing is, I think the grills are optional.
They are. It's £100 for the grills.
Yeah. So they're absolutely paring it down to the bone in terms of.
I get it.
I get it. This is the cheapest price point they could get.
Yeah.
While still having a very good finish, decent cabinets, but you're not going to get sort of super fancy heavy stuff at this price.
And what are you going to give them on the Riffometer?
Yeah. I really like them.
Yeah.
So we were talking a few episodes ago about the Acoustic Energy 8500.
We were, which we also really liked.
We also really liked.
Yes.
So I've had time to get my teeth into these in the last couple of months now, and they just get better. They're not the best speaker in the world, obviously. They're not the best standmounter. They're not the most neutral, but they are huge fun.
They're great fun.
They are absolutely cracking.
Yes.
And I think at the moment, to my ears anyway, in my system, I've not heard anything that is as fun to listen to as these.
Wow. Okay.
At or near the price.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So,
well,
I'm going to give them a very good score. I'm going to give them 9.5.
Wow. Really? That's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you know, one of the things I really like about them, which really pushes the score up for me, is they seem totally unfussy as to where you put them.
Yeah.
And I love that for small speakers. I can just lob them anywhere, and they get on with it, which I think is brilliant. But yeah, great point there. Great point. I'm going to give them a 9.
Yep.
It's not often I go lower than you.
Yep.
And there's no real reason not to, but it's just they do so many things well, and they're so much fun. They
do.
really are. They're not the last word in accuracy.
Correct.
But they are such a great laugh to listen to.
I mean, this is a great point, isn't it, about speakers? Sorry, go on.
Can I just say that these are the first speakers my teenage daughter has ever liked that I've ever bought home.
Wow!
And she's gone, "Boy, I really like those." So actually, that's a real accolade.
It is
total accolade. So they're perfect for 15-year-olds.
Yes, unlike quad electrostatics.
Which she hates.
Well, she's obviously got very good taste. What happened with you though?
I don't. That went south a long time ago.
But no, I mean, absolutely, they are not the best sort of neutral hi-fi speaker. In terms of the cost and the sort of category, product category. You can do better, you can get more neutral, you can get more bass, you can get extended, etc. Get bigger cabinets for the money, and so on and so on. But these are crackingly good fun. They're riotously good fun to listen to.
Excellent.
And that, from Rush's subdivisions to whoever it was that your daughter was playing.
Who we don't know. Some weird jungle stuff.
Stuff,
Yeah, it was brilliant. So. Anyway, there we are. Thank you so much for watching this episode, which we've thoroughly enjoyed on Mike and Dave's Hi-Fi Riff. And we really hope you come and watch us on the next one. Thanks a million. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.